Welcome back to the Sensing Self podcast. Today, I want to talk about something that so many people carry, but very few people understand, and that is patterns. Energetic patterns that shape the way you behave in your life, the reactions you have, the responsibility you feel, the way you read the room, and the way you take care of everyone else before yourself. Most people assume these patterns are just their personality, that this is simply who they are, but it's not. These patterns are learned, and very often they started long before you were old enough to understand what was happening. So in this episode, we are going to talk about where these patterns come from, why they stay with you, and how to begin changing them without blaming yourself or your past. Because the truth is, these patterns didn't start with you. There was a moment in your childhood when you learned something about the world. Maybe you learned it's safer to be quiet, it's safer to be helpful, it's safer to be good, it's safer to keep the peace, it's safer to take care of everyone else first. You didn't sit down and make that decision logically. Your body learned it because children are incredibly perceptive. They notice tone, they notice tension, they notice changes in mood and energy, and when something feels unstable, they adapt. That's how our systems are wired. We learn how to survive in the environment we are given. There's actually a really good example of this floating around on social media right now. Have you seen the Jessica tantrum trend? This is where a toddler is having a full meltdown, crying, screaming, and the parent suddenly calls out a random name like Jessica. They'll say, "Jessica, where is she? Do you see Jessica?" And the child stops. They pause, they look around, they stop crying. Why? Because the pattern changed. Now, on the surface, it looks funny. It looks like a trick, but what it actually shows us is something really important. Children are constantly reading the room. They are not just reacting to their own emotions. They are responding to shifts in their environment. When the adult suddenly changes tone, changes energy, and introduces something unexpected, the child's nervous system notices immediately. Their attention shifts from big emotion to curiosity, and that shift creates space. Space to breathe, space to regulate, space to rest. And this isn't manipulation. This is perception. This is an example of how our sensory networks are wired. I go much deeper into the neuroscience of this inside the Sensing Self program so you can understand why you feel so much and how it all works. That program is specifically for those of you who feel deeply and want to learn how to use your sensitivity as a skill. So if you want to learn more about the Sensing Self program and the work that I do, be sure to check out the link in the show notes. But it's important to understand this. The same sensitivity to environment that helps children learn language, understand social cues, and figure out how to behave in different situations is the very same system involved here. It's your sensory system. We are always watching, listening, and sensing, and internally, without words, asking, what is happening here? Am I safe? What should I do next? This is often where empathic patterns begin in childhood. So if you recognize this in yourself or even in your children, today's episode is for you. Because a lot of you started reading the room very early. And for some of you listening, you never stopped. You just became exceptionally good at it. You became highly tuned in to the emotional and relational signals around you. And to you, that feels like emotions and energy. Today, I want to explain this pattern in a way that feels clear so you can finally put words to what you've been living with and start learning how to use it as a skill. The pattern of reading the room starts very early. Long before a child can explain what they feel, their body is already learning patterns and responses. That's why the behaviors that we often see later in life, Things like over responsibility, people pleasing, and hyper awareness so often have roots in childhood because the child who learned to read the room became the adult who manages the room. But you're hearing this today so you can start putting some of that burden down, so you can release what you've been holding and begin healing your own heart. And some of you need to hear this right now. As an empath, not only do you pick up on the energy and emotions around you, you also tend to hold them. Energetic imprints stick to empaths, and that is what creates so much of the fatigue, burnout, and overwhelm that you experience. So let's go deeper into this so you can understand and feel more of you and less of everyone else. And for those of you mamas listening right now and you know your child is highly empathic, this will also give you the tools to support them. Now, as an adult, here are some signs that energy and emotions may be sticking to you. This is what to watch for. You feel bad when other people feel bad, to the point where you feel responsible for making them feel better. Another sign is you overthink your decisions. Or maybe you struggle to sit down and rest. You feel guilty when you say no or set a boundary. Or you do more than your fair share in relationships, family life, or work settings. Do any of those sound like you? And maybe you've asked yourself, why am I like this? Is it really that bad? Here's the answer. The reason you are this way is because your nervous system learned early on that your role was to help manage the environment. And that role worked when you were young. It helped you stay safe. It helped you stay connected. It helped you belong. Maybe it even helped you feel loved. But what protected you then can exhaust you now. And unless these patterns are understood, they keep running in the background, quietly shaping your choices, your reactions, and your relationships. As an empath, it is so important to understand this because, like I said earlier, you pick up on the energy and emotions around you very easily, but you also tend to hold them. When I explain this to my 8-year-old, I call it the throwing rocks theory. I tell her that sometimes people take their feelings and throw them onto you. And even if you can sense how they feel, and even if you feel bad for them, it's not your job to pick up that rock and carry it. I always tell her, notice when someone throws a rock, let it fall at your feet. Do not pick it up and hold it. And definitely do not make it your job to figure out why they threw it or how to make them feel better. That is not your responsibility as an empath. Your job is to hold space, shine your light, and share your energy in a way that doesn't drain you. And here's something else that is really important to understand about your light and energy as an empath. Empaths are natural space holders. That makes your energy magnetic. People can unconsciously feel that you have the capacity to hold space for what they are tired of carrying. And yes, unfortunately, that means some people will feel the urge to throw their emotional rocks onto you, but that does not mean that you have to pick it up. It does not mean you have to hold them, and it definitely does not mean you have to fix them. You have to protect yourself. Understanding these patterns is not about blaming your upbringing or reliving the past. And it's not about becoming emotional all the time. It's about understanding the role you learned to play, why it made sense, and how your body was doing its best to protect you. Because once you understand the pattern, you can change the pattern. Not by forcing yourself to become someone else, but by giving your nervous system new information. And that's where real change begins. And at some point, the inner work changes. You stop asking, why am I like this? and you start asking, what do I want to do now? And this is the shift from adapting to leading. And I know so many of you listening are at that point right now. That's why I'm so grateful that this episode found you at the right time, because this moment is pivotal. This is the moment where you stop reacting automatically and you start choosing. You notice what you feel and you decide what to do with that information. That is leadership. When you were younger, you likely started picking up on the complex emotions of the adults around you, but you didn't know how to process what you were sensing. And as a result, guilt formed, responsibility formed, patterns of taking on more than you needed to, patterns of carrying what was never yours. And if you recognize yourself in this, I want you to hear this clearly. This is so much more common than you think. It's just that not many people talk about it. That's one of the reasons I created this podcast, to have more conversations about things like this, because you do have the opportunity to lead yourself in a different direction. There are new patterns available to you. You can learn to make sense of what you feel so you can use your sensitivity with clarity, confidence, and direction. Because your old patterns are not your destiny, they are information. And once you understand that information, you can choose what comes next. You may have felt powerless as a child when these patterns first began forming, but I also want to remind you of something today. Those emotional experiences shaped you into a deeply kind and compassionate person. This is a part of why you know exactly what to say and when to say it in a way that helps others feel seen. That is one of your gifts. That's really what empathy is at its core, feeling other people deeply. But you want to learn how to do that in a way that does not cost you your energy or your well-being. As an empath, learning to tune in to your sense of self is everything. Because once you know what you feel like, it becomes so much easier to recognize when you are carrying something that isn't yours, or when someone else has placed something onto you that needs to be released. One of the most powerful ways to reconnect with your sense of self is through inner child healing. Because inner child healing gives you access to your core frequency. It helps strengthen your sense of self. It helps you reconnect with who you were before you started carrying so much of everyone else. And that connection can become a lifeline, especially when you walk into a room and instantly start picking up on everything around you. Inner child healing helps you reconnect with your own needs. It helps release the internal pressure to fix other people's problems. It helps loosen patterns of overwhelm, overgiving, and overcompensation that leave so many empaths feeling drained. It's a direct path to creating more safety within yourself and reconnecting to your own unique magnetic frequency. So if you know that inner child healing is your next step, here's what I want you to do. Go onto YouTube and search Kayla Parody Inner Child Healing. Try my guided meditation. And then if you have a photo of your younger self, bring it out. Start asking younger you some questions. Keep that photo near you. Put it on your desk. Let it become a point of connection. That is such a simple and powerful way to begin the process of inner child healing on your own. But before I leave you today, I need to tell you one more important thing. As an empath, when you feel overwhelmed by the emotions around you, I need you to remember this. That overwhelm did not begin today. It started when you were a child. It started when you were young and picking up on the feelings of the adults around you, but you were too young to process those feelings or understand them. That feeling of overwhelm is often a replication of the same sensation you carried as an empathic child. It's a pattern, and it's a pattern that can change. Using your sensitivity as a skill requires clear direction. You have to know where you're going, and you cannot keep being completely thrown off by the moods, energy, feelings, and actions of other people. Attuning to you is the next step. That is the path forward. And if you want more success, more stability, and more leadership in your life, that is exactly what we do inside the Sensing Self program. To learn more, check out the link in the show notes, and I will see you back here next week for another episode of the Sensing Self podcast.